What's up, guys, and welcome to Anything Dragon Ball, where I want to talk to you about anything, you guessed it, Dragon Ball, from Ball to Z and anything in between. I'm Kyokai1994, and today I'm excited to introduce my special guest, and for the very first time to this channel, Mark from Real to Real Productions. What's up, Mark? How's your day going, man?
What's up, Brandon? How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. You know, we record all of our videos late at night, so I've been working all day, but we're gonna do good. Well, so I brought you here today, Mark, to re-record a video we've already recorded because the audio was lost. But we're going to try to show our point to the community, why we think the Buu arc is super underrated and hated on for misguided reasons. I won't say wrong reasons, but I will say misguided reasons. And so the first point I did want to kind of talk about is a conversation we had a little bit of time ago where you said you may have not liked certain parts of the series. So I kind of want to start there and have you give your thoughts on what you thought of the Buu arc originally.
Originally. So I think that when they were first starting to play it was like, what, 2002, 2003 type of situation. And back then, I didn't like the series at all. You gotta imagine or remember where it was at that particular point. So Gohan had just turned Super Saiyan 2, killed Cell, who was, I guess, the culmination of almost everything. I mean, his physical embodiment was the culmination of almost everything that Goku and Co. had faced up until that point. So he seemed like a really good place to end it. Gohan was going to be the next fighter. Goku was basically going to be dead forever. And lo and behold, there was like 90 episodes left of this show. And, you know, we got the Otherworld tournament. That was kind of cool, unexpected, in my opinion. And then the whole Great Saiyaman arc, which, although I've come to love, I didn't like it at the time because that's not what I pictured Gohan to be. And I feel like a lot of the fan base still kind of assumes that as much as well. It's like they weren't picturing that from Gohan. They were picturing something a lot more badass, something a lot more like Goku, not necessarily this nerdy teenager kid. And it just kind of got weird from there, honestly. You know, you go from that to building up what could potentially be the most epic tournament we've ever seen throughout all of Dragon Ball, with Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Krillin, and 18 fighting in the same tournament. And then also Goten and Trunks before we knew that there was a child division. So you have like those 7 people going at it. And it was just it was going to be really, really awesome. But then they just changed it. And it was just this big bubblegum-like creature eating everyone, committing mass genocide. And then Fusion was introduced, and it was kind of a comedic relief character with Gotenks. And then it just, nothing about it at the time seemed to be working out. But I think a lot of that was also because of my mental state growing up well into my teenage years. At that point, didn't necessarily want to be dealing with anime, thought I was outgrowing it, but at the same time so much of completist that I couldn't let it go, and I needed to know how it ended. So that was my conflicting emotion when I first saw it. But at the same time, I came back to it much later in life, and I realized just how interesting it all is. How well it all works together. The comedic tones with the genocidal, like, torturous, dark aspects of the entire arc just kind of meld well together, and it just feels like a perfect culmination of everything that we wanted from the Western culture that Dragon Ball should be. It should just be really strong characters at the forefront of a story who are just getting more and more powerful with more ridiculous transformations or techniques or fusion-like processes or absorption or something, where it was just going to be one strong first person versus another strong person, and every single thing felt like the climax of that particular arc, but we never got to it. And I just thought that that's what a lot of people really wanted from this entire show. We finally got it, and no one necessarily appreciates it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely agree with that. But I do want to say something that Mark brought up. He said the reason why he did not like it was because of a big fat creature who was childish and who also threw temper tantrums. I mean, there's plenty of things, but it was kind of leading me to my next point, is that what made me want to do this video is reading a lot of Reddit forums and Kanzenshu forums, and I just realized how much hate there was for this series. Not for this series, for this arc. Everybody loves this series. But for this arc, is out of the 4 major arcs in Dragon Ball Z, it is personally my second favorite arc. But from what I've heard in the community, is the least favorite arc, period. And like what he said, a lot of people want to bring up that it was childish, that it was hard to follow, and that it was poorly written. And these are 3 major things that I see, plus them making Gohan scholar. So these are like the 4 major things that I've seen that people just immediately throw up to try to like denounce the whole arc and say that it's just bad. After reviewing it several times, I have grown more and more fond of it, and realized a lot deeper storytelling to it. A lot of people just give it the once-over and don't kind of go into it, but as YouTubers like Mark and myself, that's exactly what we do. That's what we're trying to do. And so we dive into it as deep as we can, and I've realized that there's a lot of foreshadowing and connection through this arc that if you really paid attention to these subtle hints, you possibly could have picked up on things. One thing that Mark mentioned is there's a child division in the tournament. Trunks and Goten go at it. They're the last 2. Great fight. Go watch it. Not gonna summarize it. But they wanted to fight in the adult division. So what they do is they knock out a fighter and they steal his clothes. And they learn to be a adult disfigured human male. And I've realized a major part of foreshadowing that happened before that. Goten and Trunks, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show, I don't know why, because it's been 20 years since it's been on. More than that, but obvious. 20 years. But they fuse and create this badass character. But there are all these remnants of them learning how to be a fusion before they ever learn about like stabilizing ki with each other and actually doing the transformation pose. So like I said, the foreshadowing that I've seen the most with Mighty Mask when they are Mighty Mask is that Trunks gets to be the leader because of Goten's kind of submissive way of just like, yeah, I'll listen to whatever you want to do, Trunks. Let's do that. So Goten gets to be the legs. And they have all this training that gets them to be comfortable with each other, which is what I feel makes their fusion far stronger and superior faster than it could have been if they were Goku and Vegeta kind of arguing it out in their head. But I wanted to see what you kind of thought maybe about any of the storytelling for the series, or for the arc.
Oh, well, I honestly never really thought about that until you brought it up. And like you said before, this is a re-recording, so obviously you'd already brought this up in the earlier recording. But just genuinely, I had never thought of that as a storytelling kind of foreshadowing situation. Never really looked at it. And at the same time, I really like that concept. I really like the idea that Goten and Trunks were working together, and I think one of the things that does is it primes the audience into believing or kind of considering the fact that this could be what's going on in the future, and this is how we'll get to see them work together in this situation further on in the future. And one of the things that not only that arc kind of picked up on, but also the majority of the series, I mean, Goten and Trunks, outside of the future Trunks arc in Dragon Ball Super, are really just good teammates. Like, they fight with each other. They're basically created just simply for each other, and I really like that about those particular characters and how they interact with each other. And when you come to any other things that were basically foreshadowed or, I guess, put upon the entire series, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of random, but there's also stuff that really works very well. One of the things is I love the fight between Goku and Vegeta, in terms of Vegeta kind of regressing into his evil state, but also having the wherewithal to basically fight Babidi's mind control, and also have enough sense to go fight Majin Buu and even sacrifice himself for the greater good. That's a story plot that's continued through the Cell Saga and really kind of helps punctuate just how much Vegeta has grown throughout the majority of Dragon Ball Z. So we get a lot of character development from Vegeta in this particular arc, even if he's not necessarily in it for the longest time. I mean, for most people, he's not necessarily in it a lot either. And then you also have Gohan's kind of shepherding into a man with the ultimate form, and his relationship bonding with Videl, and his relationship with Gohan as kind of a big brother, but also kind of a father figure, if you really want to put it in that light, to his younger brother, who considers him such a influence. And the one thing I would really say, though, is they don't necessarily give Piccolo a lot to do, although they kind of shepherded him into this new babysitter type of mentor thing that he has been for a really long time. He doesn't necessarily get a time to shine. Goku, on the other hand, is just always going to be Goku, so I don't think a lot of people can really take too much offense with that. I understand a lot of people don't like the Super Saiyan 3 transformation, but that is what Goku is. It's just always someone who's going to find another level beyond, another way to combat his enemy. And even though it might have been an ass pull, something that was completely achieved off screen and completely could have been used to stop Vegeta instantaneously and not necessarily bring about Majin Buu, it was still an interesting thing. One thing we did need from that is a new transformation, and we finally got it with that, plus the fusions, plus the whole god ritual with the Elder Kai giving Gohan his ultimate form. So I really thought that those three things in particular are cool when it comes to what Dragon Ball was trying to do throughout its entire run, was give us more, better, interesting transformations and character dynamics where people get stronger and fight harder opponents. Plus the whole absorption thing with Buu was really awesome, and you get to see that a lot. Actually, it's kind of running off of the same character or even dynamic of how Cell in his imperfect form was kind of creating and gathering energy by absorbing people. We get to see that kind of continue with Buu, where he absorbs people or even eats people, where it's kind of not necessarily indicated that if he eats people he gets stronger, but we get to see that kind of story thread continue from villain to villain, and I thought that was actually interesting too.
You also brought up in your several great points that there was a lot of character development. I do want to say, like you said, there was a continuation from the Cell Saga into the Buu Saga of what seemed like better storytelling. And what I've kind of noticed through everything is the first run of arcs are kind of build up, get stronger, fight the enemy, go home, be peaceful. Build up, fight the enemy, now the world's peaceful. With this, I felt like it was more dynamic, or not more dynamic, but it was more in depth. So we had all of these characters who really hadn't been built up over all these years that the show has been coming out. Very shallow characters that now in this arc have greatly gone into depth. Krillin getting married and having a baby. We get to see more into their relationship through that arc. We get to see Vegeta's, obviously, his change, because you fully get to see him embrace being an Earthling in his final atonement. You also get to see Buu's great character transformation, both literally and physically, especially after Mr. Satan gets him to agree that evil things are not fun to do anymore. Whenever the two shots happen, we get to see a physical embodiment of a good over evil fight in one person's brain, where evil actually overdid good, and that's what spawns the rest of the plot. I mean, then you see that he still has some remnants of good and may be able to be purified later on. And then when the Kid Buu form comes in, Goku, the very last thing, hey, I hope you get reincarnated into something good so I can fight you again. So you see this overwhelming turning evil to good plot as well come through this. I also did want to dive down into a little bit of the character in depth into Vegeta and Gohan themselves. Gohan, throughout the whole series, kind of gets this stigma put on him that his mom made him study. I've seen several little hints in the series that Gohan wanted to be a scholar. He also wanted to be a fighter at times, and it was a very big battle of balance in his head at certain points of his life. But during this part right now, we definitely see him being a scholar. He goes to school, he's trying to do the best he can, but with him seeing the small amounts of evil that come from just living on Earth, he does try to do the good thing. He creates the Great Saiyaman. He is the Golden Warrior for the first couple days that, he's into the town. But we get to see him kind of balance that life more so than we've seen with like Goku, because we never really see him interact with regular people in the world. So it was really nice to kind of see what he wants to do for his world to protect his family. Protect's a little bit strong at the beginning of the arc, but obviously later on when he tells Boo, I'm going to kill you, you definitely get to see a major turn in his character, along with showing how strong he can actually be and putting to rest all the people who say he doesn't mean anything in that arc.
Yeah. The thing is, I honestly think that there's a misconception with Gohan that stems from a lot of places. And like you said, there is so many interesting situations that they show with Gohan that indicate that this is exactly what he wants to do. Both canon and filler and all this other stuff where, the first time he meets Bulma, she's like, well, what do you want to do? He's like, I want to be a scholar. And they're just like, what? Like, that's crazy. You're Gohan's son. Or you're Goku's son. And the thing is I feel like the majority of the fan base, and this isn't really to put down anyone for any particular thing, but if we think about everything that came before that particular arc, everything was leading up to Gohan being a badass. The next protagonist hero type of archetype for
somebody
the series,
who could have
with
the
him.
torch passed to him.
Yeah, that's what it was kind of built with in the last arc, which is definitely a part of it. He had reached this new level of power. Goku was dead. There wasn't necessarily a burden on anyone else. He had to protect the world. And also, and this is weird because it doesn't matter whether you watch it in Japanese or English, it comes across as the same thing. Toei, not Toriyama, although there is one specific chapter in the original manga that deals with the history of Trunks' arc and Trunks' past before he comes back. But in the television special, which Super is now adapted into canon, they, in my opinion, completely misinterpret Gohan's character. And this isn't Toriyama. This is
Toei's decision.
This is Toei's decision, yeah. And they misinterpret, because he says in Japanese and English that Chi-Chi stopped him from made him study, and all he wanted to do was fight. He wanted to train. He wanted to get stronger like his dad. And I understand, I kind of understand both what their thought was making that story and what Gohan's thought was as a character, having lived and grown up in that world without anyone to protect him and the androids rampaging. But it's completely inconsistent with how Gohan acted at any given point throughout the series, at that particular point. And they even retconned that situation, that mentality, in Dragon Ball Super. Not that this is a Dragon Ball Super conversation, but they retcon that mentality when Trunks realizes that Gohan got everything he wanted in this timeline, and those thoughts or opinions or dreams of everything that he wanted, be a scholar, have a family, all this other stuff that he got in our timeline in Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Z, happened, but he never told Trunks that on screen or on the page in the History of Trunks timeline. So a lot of people, I think, misinterpret that. They see a badass Gohan that was like around that same age, or at least that body build. They think it should be this guy who's scarred and, worn from years and years of fighting. But at the same time, he didn't grow up in that future. He was never that person, and they misinterpreted him. And we have this archetype of Gohan that we want and we expected before we ever got that particular side of Gohan. I think a lot of people misinterpret that. And I mean, even just kind of going off just straight base, one of the things more recently, even Team 4-Star kind of came out and said that they got flack from the voice actor they chose to do Gohan's voice for the Buu arc when they had someone completely different for the History of Trunks special parody that they did. But even they said that this is something that we believe is consistent with the story, because that Gohan is completely different from this Gohan. This Gohan that we got in the Buu arc got to become his better self.
Yeah, it's people projecting their thoughts of what they've seen onto a different Gohan. Because I also feel like a lot of people think, well, if you let him just grow up the way he wants to, he's going to be that Gohan. But he's not going to be that Gohan, because that Gohan lived a completely different life that our Gohan can never live. Because his father's gone, all of his friends are gone, all of his mentors are gone. Like, it's just him by himself and Trunks now. So I mean, they're projecting this onto another Gohan of another timeline, and I think that's another reason that there's some hate brought to this. Like what you were saying, we get to finally see that adult Gohan, and it's not what a lot of people were thinking about. We also get to see a really good character shift in Vegeta. We get to see him revert back to his old ways because of the Majin ritual of being taken over. But like you said, we get to see him fight it. He only used it to unlock that little bit of extra power that he didn't have anymore. That good conscience. Let's say that. He wanted to turn his good conscience off. He didn't want to take care about his family. He didn't want to care about anything. All of these things that he's grown to love over all of these years because Goku forced him to be good, he doesn't want any of that at this moment. All he wants is his fight and his revenge with Kakarot from the very first arc of Dragon Ball Z. I mean, he wants that settled. That's the last thing he wants settled, since this is the only 24 hours Goku will ever be able to do this. So we get to see him shift back into his evil ways. And then while evil, we get to see him shift back into, I would say, a pure way. I'll say he's got some anger left in him in Super that you can definitely see, but I would say pure. I would say a purer way. And you get to see his heart transform, because when he knocks Goku out during their amazing fight, which is one of the top highlights for me as well of this little arc, is finally getting to see that revenge fight. When he knocks him out, he tells him, and he goes, Goku, this is not your fight. When you wake up, Majin Buu will be gone, and I will be gone as well. But he's taking the responsibility because he realizes that Goku has taken all of this responsibility and all of these things, and how good of a person Goku is, and he finally realized, I'm almost exactly like that. And I mean, obviously they don't say it or show it, but me trying to dive into his brain and using my own headcanon, I can definitely see where you have to hit pure evil before you can come into the good. I can definitely see that. And it's a transformation that you get to see, especially if you take it while you're older, if you take it above past face value. It just seems really good to me, and it's just one of the major things that I really like, is seeing him change. But you were talking earlier about how this arc is the embodiment of anything or everything we wanted to see as Dragon Ball Z fans in the Western side of the world, at least. And going along with that, I also wanted to start talking about the production side of this kind of series. Or, well, not this series. I keep saying series. This arc. So I wanted to talk a little bit about production and about how, through all of their years of experience, both on the Japanese and the American voice acting side, this was some of the best work they had done, especially in the original Dragon Ball Z dub, and even more so with the redubbing that they've both done, Japanese and English, for Dragon Ball Z Kai. They've gotten to put their best work out there, and they've really learned the characters at this point. The performances, I feel, are fantastic. The animation is perfect. I won't say perfect, but the animation is as well fantastic. I also want to go more into how you were talking about the physical embodiment of everything we like. We got to see transformations, we got to see power-ups, we got to see people die, we got to see people come back. We also got to see my personal favorite escape when Piccolo, Goten, and Boo are in the Room of Spirit and Time, and Boo literally screams a hole through the dimension to come back to Earth, and then then Gotenks does the same exact thing. It's like a screaming contest. It's not even a fight. They literally screamed their way through a dimension. And I just think that's a pretty good highlight of that little part of that arc.
I when it comes to Dragon Ball Kai, and I don't know, it's not necessarily this particular arc, but when it comes to Dragon Ball Kai, I'm really excited, or just kind of happy, that this is a series that is so long lasting, so far reaching, and so profitable, popular, that it literally got a chance to be re-edited and rebroadcasted, like with new with an edited down version of its particular self, the main story, and redubbed from the voice cast and all this other stuff. I've heard conflicting ideas about, obviously the American cast in Kai is better than they've ever been. That's the idea I've heard, but at the same time I've also heard that the Japanese voice cast is a little bit, they had really good performances at the beginning, and now they're all a little bit older. They're not really in their, some of them aren't really in their primes, but you watch Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super, or Dragon Ball Z Kai, or Dragon Ball Kai, whatever you want to call it, and then Super, obviously they're still just hitting it out of the park every single week, and it's just crazy how much they're actually able to bring forth, both dub actors and all this other stuff. So it wasn't necessarily bad to begin with, but now we have two ways of watching it, and definitely one way of reading it with the manga. And there are still some differences all three ways, but there's a way to basically absorb this story so many different times. So I think that's really special, but that's not necessarily this particular arc. Although I have heard that, and I haven't necessarily watched it, but I've heard that Kai for the Boo arc, especially the English dub, is just phenomenal. And you'd speak better to that than I could.
Yeah, I bought both of them the days they came out, and I marathoned them the same day. I think it's fantastic. I use that word a lot. It probably downplays it, but I really do solidly mean that from the bottom of my heart. The English dub so far of Kai, the final chapters, has to be some of the best work that they've done. And this is going off the other seasons of Kai that they've already done that were perfect to me in the first place. But we are getting a little long on the video, so I do have a feeling that we'll probably revisit this topic and maybe dive even more in depth. I do want to hear y'all's opinion on the Boo arc originally and now, or any discussions that you guys want to have about the Boo arc. We can definitely have in the comments. I want you guys to remember to like the video. I also want you guys to subscribe to my channel so you guys can see more great content from me. But the main thing I want you to do is go down in the link. I want you to go to Mark's channel, and if you're not already subscribed to Real, I want you to, because this man deserves as many people that he can talk to, because he knows what he's talking about. I say deserves because I see a lot of these YouTubers that put so much work into it. Day in, day out, video, and Dragon Ball Z is not the only thing that Mark talks about. He talks about several other topics on his channel, and I really want you guys to check him out, and I really want you guys to enjoy his content as much as I do personally.
Oh.
Was there anything else that you was there anything else that you kind of wanted to close off with, maybe?
I do want to reiterate that point that you brought up and I brought up as well. What I want to hear from people who've listened this far is basically, was, when you think about it, whether you thought about it when you first watched it or anything like that, was this arc the epitome of everything you wanted when you first started watching? You wanted screaming, transformations, epic fights, a sense of conclusion with every single fight that came, like not waiting on anyone or something like that, and just unbelievable stakes, like the universe is in peril and everything else that came with this arc. If that's what you wanted, that's what they gave you, and it's interesting to see how many people in the community hate that, when I feel like there's a lot of people in this community who wanted that. So tell us what you think about that.
Okay, so I guess that's where we'll close it off. So I just want to tell you guys, I hope you enjoyed the content, and we'll catch you guys next time.